Good morning, Kerstin.
Good morning, Djamila.
I'm here with Kerstin Heusinger. She's a German-French freelance independent journalist. And I'm Djamila. I'm an independent journalist from the Netherlands. And we witnessed yesterday the 26th hearing in the court case against Reiner Fuellmich. And it was quite an explosive event. It lasted from before the court hearing opened till about 2 o'clock, or what was it again? Yeah, just after 2
o'clock. Yeah.
And we just thought we'd do an English update because there are a lot of German interviews, and some people will pass it on into an English version, but we thought maybe to accommodate the English and especially the American audience, we would do an English language interview, although neither of us is a native English speaker. Yeah. So, Kerstin, what were your impressions yesterday?
Well, it was a bit like a classical TV happening. It was quite dramatic, and a lot of things were happening. As you just said, it was already from the beginning when we were outside the courtroom that things were going on. That big discussions. There was the lawyer Katja Wermer, who's the public defender, who was former the public defender of Reiner Fuellmich.
She's the main lawyer.
The main lawyer, right. Yeah. She was a little bit late, so there was the second lawyer, Christophe Misery, and there was another lawyer who made who wanted to put an application to the court.
Yeah, and that was Mr. Grosenbach.
It was Mr. Grosenbach, yes.
He is a representative for Viviane Fischer, who is an ex-colleague of Reiner Fuellmich, and she's the co-founder also of Corona-Ausschuss.
Of the Corona Investigative Committee, yes.
And he wanted to, already last time, to submit his, request for more evidence or for some sort of statement.
Yes.
And there wasn't time, so the expectation was that he would be allowed some time today, but he had heard the Friday previously that his contribution wasn't accepted by the court, right?
I thought so, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I understood as well, yes.
Yeah. And to me, although we don't know, we haven't seen his documents, but what he has disclosed is that now Viviane Fischer, who was the one who on the 2nd of September 2022 publicly stated that there was something that Reiner had to rectify or correct,
right, yes.
And then went on the 20th of September 2022 in a especially created video to say that he had taken, or imply that he had taken 700,000 euros. Apparently she is now of the position that he hasn't taken the money, or he hasn't committed a crime, because at the time the organization wasn't officially founded, and therefore the accounts, things were paid off, and the accounts that the money was transferred to Reiner actually weren't the company's accounts, and therefore he hasn't taken any money from the company. And the statement then further said, or the position is that they say if there is a crime, it is at the most that he betrayed the sponsors, the people who donated the money, but assuming that the sponsors are more lenient, that they were quite happy to provide costs for IT or whatever what was needed to run the show. Right. That crime wouldn't be as severe as taking money from the company, and therefore he wouldn't get the same sentence. He wouldn't get 5 years in jail or whatever, which is what the expectation is now. So that, to me, is a huge turnaround.
Totally. Yes, it's totally unexpected, because Viviane, I mean, we saw her in court. She had 4 days as a testimony. And it was big discussions, entire days of 7 hours. So it was like ongoing battles all the time. And the main thing she wanted to get through is that Reiner Fuellmich is guilty. And now she's totally turning around and she's saying no, he's not guilty, because I think as well otherwise the money would go to the other plaintiffs.
Yeah, so there were two other founders.
The co-founders of the Corona Investigative Committee, but who actually never really worked in it.
Yeah, they were at a couple of these sessions
yes.
Of these broadcasts.
Yeah.
But they never contributed on the organizational level.
Right.
And very soon we didn't see them anymore in the Corona-Ausschuss editions. And I think early in 2021 they split, right? Viviane Fischer and Reiner Fuellmich, they started a new Corona-Ausschuss basically, without the other ones.
A new company as well, yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, and those two people have submitted the accusations.
Yes. The plaint?
Yeah, so it's not really their case, it's the state prosecutor who is doing the case, but they have submitted it. They have been in close collaboration with the state prosecutor.
By the way, in a doubtive way as well, because they had a lot of phone calls between the two plaintiffs with the state prosecutor, and I think during more than 1 year they were not even hearing Reiner Fuellmich, and that's really not the usual legal way of doing those things.
According to German law, if somebody has a file against you and accuses you of something, you have the right to be questioned by the state prosecutor before anything starts, any prosecution starts, to explain your side of the story, and that has never happened with Reiner.
Right, and as well, there is nothing documented about those phone calls.
Yes. And the phone calls with the state prosecution and the others,
between the plaintiffs and the prosecutor. And when Antonia Fischer was testifying, she said that she had at least 30 phone calls. Yeah. So it's really big discussions going on, and they're not at all part of the.
They're not recorded.
Of the official.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the big explosion started in the morning when this Mr. Rosenbach, who wanted to submit his thing, wasn't allowed to, and then Miseré, the second lawyer of Fuellmich, also got angry because he wanted Rosenbach to submit the thing because that would prove that there wasn't a case against Reiner Fuellmich, but the judges wouldn't have it. So then already, temperaments were high, and that was before it even started. It was at 9:05. We already were watching this show. Then about 20 minutes past 9, the judges officially opened, and then very soon it derailed again, because then it was a question about the judges in the previous hearing had said that from now on, because the defense of Reiner Fuellmich had submitted so many requests for witnesses and evidence, that they were, stalling the case. Whereas the position of Katja Wermer, the first lawyer for Reiner Fuellmich, is they're not stalling. They're trying desperately to get evidence and witnesses on the stand, but it's every time it's rejected. So they can only try again with other material and other things. So then the judge at the end of the last setting had decided from now on, if you submit any more requests, it's going to be it's called a Selbstleseverfahren.
Yes.
The judges can only read it. It will not be discussed in the court, which means that the public, the audience, will not hear it.
Yes.
And the press will not hear it. Mm-hmm. Then the argument was, yes, but when the judge rejects all these things or accept them, then we will hear what was submitted. But of course, first of all, the judge speaks like a
very, very quickly. You really have to. I mean, if you're not really yourself a lawyer and you know all these terms, it's really very difficult to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and that is if you speak German.
So even if you speak German, yes, even if you're a native speaker.
But then also, I mean, if he rejects things, he's never going to go into the argumentation that the defense would have put forward to ask for these things. So it's a really, it interferes with the public.
Yes.
With the right to know,
Yeah, I mean something like the Freedom of Information Act in a way. It's not exactly that, and we don't have the same laws, but it's something like that, and it's a way of hiding the real discussions, the real issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Misery objected to this this rule that from now on we were only reading, or the judges were only reading. And then the judges already had a pause, so that we were like 3 minutes in the hearing, and there was already a break for 15 minutes. The judges came back and they stood by their decision to have this reading order. And then it went on to something about something about the protocol van die Angeklagte. So Reiner wanted to submit something. Misery explained it. And then the judges kept saying, so it is your contribution.
It's your application.
Yeah,
it's your application. So it was like Misery explained it, like in order to express what was what was in these words. But he did it for Reiner. But it was not him doing the application.
No, he was just doing an introduction to
like
Reiner.
Exactly.
But the judge kept, deliberately or not, misunderstanding him and saying, okay, we're going to put this in the protocol to say that you are doing it. And then that totally escalated.
Yes, and she said, I'm not doing it. The plaintiff, the
accused.
The accused will do it himself. And the judge was always cutting him.
Yeah.
He couldn't even finish a sentence. And then he was exploding.
Like, this is an inquisition's process.
Yes, I mean, and he said as well before that he had some proof by some high institution, I don't know what, that this entire keeping secret stuff is illegal.
Yeah.
And he had like a proof, and the judge was like reacting in his very special way. And he was always cutting them. And then Misery stood up and said, anyway, this is a corrupt court session. I am no longer assisting at that. I'm going out. I cannot accept that.
Yeah, and he said if this continues, then none of the defense, the defense will stop altogether. And so then we had a half an hour break. And at that point, and Misery stormed out of the courtroom, and then after the break went in to sit in the public arena as an audience. Later he did come back, but so that was, it was we were
special.
Now at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
And
I mean, what was special as well, that at this moment the Katja Werner was not yet here. The third lawyer is in holidays, so he was not here either. So Reiner was sitting there by himself. And the situation was, well, what's going on? How can this continue?
Yeah.
And then there was this break. And during the break, Katja Werner arrived.
Yeah. Yeah, and Reiner was taken down. I think then he was taken down. Because in the previous hearings, every time there was a break, I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. In the previous hearings, every time there was a break, he would be handcuffed again and taken down, but in the later ones, the last 3 or so, he was left upstairs without the handcuffs, so he could discuss things with his lawyers.
Right.
And in the first little break yesterday, the 15-minute break, he was allowed to stay up, but the half an hour break he was taken down again. So every time they're putting the handcuffs off, and he has he has to go down. So then Katja Werner came, and Misery was in the audience. Grossenbach was also angry because he had wanted to sit with us in the press row, but he wasn't allowed to, so he was also in the audience. And then what happens?
Well, there was big discussions going on between the lawyers, and including Grossenbach, who 2 sessions ago was not really with this group. So there was big discussions going on. What are we going to do? How are we going to proceed? And then, it continued. Katja Werner took her place in the courtroom. Yeah,
and she had brought with her 3 witnesses.
Yes.
The witnesses had been rejected all this time, but apparently there's a possibility if you bring the witnesses along, you can ask the judge to put them on the spot.
Yeah, to hear them.
Yes. And the judge allowed 2 witnesses that were friends of Reiner Fuellmich, and the 3rd witness, he's also a friend, but he's a lawyer as well. And he had the role of the bookkeeper in the very first Corona-Ausschuss set up organization.
In the first company of the Corona Investigative Committee, right? But he was already heard.
Yeah, he was already heard, and he wasn't allowed to to testify yesterday. But the other two were, and they were only allowed to testify to give answers to the question: do you think Reiner Fuellmich was going to? Was there a matter of a loan that he could invest, or did it have to stay? How do you say that in English? It had to be solvent. You had to be able to take out the money and pay for things, which Reiner hadn't done because he had put it in his house. So they had to answer the question: was it a loan, and was he willing to pay it back?
Yes.
And they weren't allowed to say anything else about it.
That was the topic, yeah.
And so how did that go?
Well, they were talking by themselves. I mean, there was, when the first, it was a friend, a close friend of Reiner, a friend of I think, like something like 30 years or longer even. And he's a very touching personality anyway. And he said, well, for me, I cannot imagine that Reiner would be able to do something like that. And he said that Reiner talked to him at some point after this famous September 2nd, when he was thrown out of the Corona Investigative Committee. Reiner talked to him and explained to him the situation. He said, I was always able and willing to pay back the money, but he was just waiting for the final decisions to sell his house, and he confirmed that. The witness confirmed that, and he was talking as well. And I mean, this was a very touching moment because it always brought Reiner almost to tears in the courtroom, and this was, well, the first time I witnessed that, at least. And he said when he was organizing the birthday party in front of the prison for Reiner, this friend, and he said all those people who were lying in my arms, crying, I can't. It's for me. It's just beyond any imagination that Reiner could have, that they felt betrayed, and that Reiner could betray them. It's just beyond my imagination. He was almost in tears. Reiner was almost in tears. So it was a very touching moment. But it was very. What he was saying was very basic, very basical.
Yeah, it was a very personal account and very moving account. But for the judges, it didn't bring a lot in terms of facts. I think they were looking to hear that Reiner had told him from the moment the loan was made that he was always going to pay it back, and and this man's we never talked about these things. We do stuff, we party, but it was only after this broadcast that Viviane did and said there's something, Reiner won't be at the Corona-Ausschuss broadcast anymore until he's resolved whatever he needs to resolve.
Yes.
That was after that they spoke about the financial stuff. So that didn't, for the judge, you could see it didn't impact on them.
No. Well, we don't know what's going. Actually, we don't really know, but it didn't look like.
No.
At least for the public, it was, as well for our point of view, it was. Yeah.
It was a good character.
Absolutely.
Sketch that he gave.
Yes.
Of the person who
very,
Reiner is.
Very authentic, very trustworthy, but not a lot, as you said, just in terms of information. Yeah.
And then the second one was a lady friend, and they don't know each other that long. They know each other since Corona, actually.
Since 2020, yeah.
She was a medical professional. And can you say something about that testimony?
Well, she was mainly talking about an evening she had passed with Viviane Fischer, and this was before, I guess probably a few weeks or months, I don't know exactly, before Reiner was excluded of the Corona Investigative Committee. And there was one evening when Viviane came along with her then boyfriend, and they spent an evening with this woman, of whom they knew that she was a very close friend of Reiner and his wife. and Viviane was keeping during the evening asking this woman what exactly Reiner used the money for, the money from the loan. So was it invested, in what way was it invested in the house? And I mean, she was apparently spending the evening asking and asking and asking. And this lady always said, well, I don't know that exactly. But Reiner's house, you know how it looks like. So, and she said as well that this evening escalated in a very, very special emotional situation. But well, in terms of information, she said basically as well that Reiner was always ready and willing to pay back.
Yeah, and she also emphasized, because apparently there were a lot of evenings at Reiner's house.
Yes,
he was hosting with his wife a lot of evenings. And the money he spent on adding a swimming pool, jacuzzi, and a sauna or something to his house, or to upgrade it, so to make more money when he sold it, and then the money would be paid back. That was the original idea.
Yeah.
So everybody could see, this is what Reiner had testified, but also what she has testified. Everybody could see what was going on. I mean, the work was going on for a year, and Viviane was also often invited at the house, so she has seen what's been going on. And then there was a question about, maybe we should explain for the people who are new, that the money was invested. Some money was taken out of the accounts because the German government was closing down accounts of people critical of the Corona narrative. And they had either confiscated accounts, or they had blocked accounts, or they had transferred money to other accounts. And to avoid that happening to them, Viviane, the bookkeeper at the time, and Reiner had decided to take out money, to put it safe somewhere else, so that it couldn't be touched.
So that's why,
so that's why Reiner had used it for his house that was already paid off, I think, or
it was paid off.
It was paid off, so they couldn't touch that. They couldn't confiscate it.
Yeah.
And another part of the money went to buying gold.
Yes.
And so this particular night, this lady was describing, the witness, was Viviane coming for the gold. She wanted to pick up the gold, or wanted to question where the gold was.
Yes, but not from her.
Not from her.
No, that's, at least I didn't understand that. There was another evening when she tried to get the gold.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand that.
Oh, I thought they came to pick it up, and then there was question about what happened to the other money. And well, anyway, so the only unfortunate thing about the testimonies was that the two witnesses couldn't recollect the specific dates, or so the factual information wasn't there. There was context, and there was character descriptions, but that were the two testimonies.
Yes.
And then after that, because so much happened that I've lost the chronological order of the day.
Well, pretty much after those testimonies, there was not much going on, and in the end, Christoph Misery came back, and there was one important thing probably that we didn't mention yet, because in the first, in this longer break of it was longer than there was an hour break.
Yeah.
It was even not half an hour, but it was an hour.
And this was before lunch.
It was before lunch. Then we came back to the court. It was 3 or 5 minutes of session, and then we had lunch break.
Yeah.
So, but the lunch break was pretty short. And then during this hour, there was an how do you say that? A petition.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Going on from the public and from us as the press to make an application to the court. Probably you will.
Yeah, to keep it public, so that they wouldn't, that they would stop this rule that things will only be read. So all of the audience, or at least the ones who agreed with it, they signed the thing, and it was submitted to the judge, and separately we wrote to the press office of the court. Okay, apologize for the abrupt cut. Suddenly my phone said it was full and wouldn't take anymore, but we've emptied it a little bit. So we just wanted to round up We were already finishing off, but you were saying about the petition?
Yes, it was this petition going on from almost all the spectators were signing it, and so it was handwritten during the pause, but it was a really official statement, and there were a lot of signatures in the end. And Dr. Misery presented this in front of the court. So he officially gave this to the protocol. And we were asking ourselves whether this already happened in Göttingen court.
Yeah, and it must be quite unique that the whole audience is signing, like, we object to your decision that you just made, because it excludes us from knowing what's going on. But my application to the press was rejected because it was up to the judge to decide such things.
Yes, that's so.
So we'll hear next week. That was the next thing. That next week is another hearing. It's sort of a weekly affair. This I can't believe it will be the 23rd hearing.
Incredible, yes. Yeah.
And the only one planned after that is on the 14th of August, and then there will be at least a 2-week break if it isn't finished off by the. Yeah. Is there anything we have forgotten to say about yesterday?
Well, good question. I think there were a lot of details, but the basic things. I think we talked
covered
about them.
Yeah,
we covered them.
But maybe it's important to say that none of the other judges and none of the state prosecutor or Antonia Fischer, who's always present, they didn't have any questions for the witnesses.
Yes.
So it was only the chair, the judge who chairs Mr. Schindler, and then the defense for mainly Reiner Fuellmich.
Yes.
Who asked the questions. Well, that was our update of yesterday. Maybe we can do it again next week.
Yes.
And we hope you enjoyed it. And till next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.